session of the Aurora City Council for Monday, June 24, 2024 is called to order. Will the clerk please read the roll?
Mayor Kaufman.
Here.
Councilmember Bergen. Here. Councilmember Coombs.
Present.
Councilmember Gardner.
Here.
Councilmember Hancock.
Here.
Councilmember Drinsky. Here. Councilmember Lawson.
Here.
Councilmember Medina.
Here.
Councilmember Murillo.
Present.
Councilmember Sundberg. And Mayor Pro Tem Zavanek.
Here.
There's a quorum.
There's no mayor's update. Are there any issue updates? Seeing none, is there any opposition to moving the consent calendar forward, item number 2A? Seeing none, item number 2A will move forward. Item number 5A, Tumo Center resolution. Councilmember Allison Coombs.
Thank you, Mayor. I will keep my remarks brief and leave time for our presenters to speak. We have Simon McGuckin and Sawyer Hescock from TUMO. And this is a proposal to have staff support in a feasibility study regarding bringing a TUMO Center to Aurora. And I will let them describe what that is. So Simon, if you'd
Go ahead
like
and
to
take
come
the podium,
forward
Simon.
to
Thank
the
you.
podium, and then Sawyer is online.
Thank you very much. Good evening, good afternoon, council members. My name is Simon McGuckin, and I'm here on behalf of Armenians of Colorado, Inc., or AOC, not to be confused with any member of Congress, to introduce TUMO, the global leader in free digital education for teens. Following my remarks, Sawyer Hescock, CEO of TUMO Los Angeles, will provide more details about this remarkable organization. First, a brief overview of our local organization, Armenians of Colorado. Founded in 1979 by prominent Coloradans of Armenian heritage, including Colorado Business Hall of Fame laureate Larry Orulian, AOC has served Metro Denver's Armenian and allied communities for nearly half a century. Our notable accomplishments include the Colorado State Capitol Armenian Genocide Memorial Garden, established in 1982, which we renovated and expanded in 2015, and which we have maintained continuously for over 40 years. Additionally, AOC offers a Saturday language school and supports statewide educational efforts like the Holocaust and Genocide Education Law. And a few years ago, we began offering small-scale coding programs to community teens, discovering in the process the dire need for a digital literacy center in Colorado. This is how we connected with TUMO. Created by a Texan entrepreneur, TUMO is the global leader in free digital education for student-led learning. Serving over 30,000 teens worldwide, TUMO centers offer digital literacy and robust after-school programs that boost student and community success. I emailed you last week, so you should have some more information, but I would like to invite the Los Angeles-based CEO of TUMO California, who also used to lead TUMO's global partnerships, Sawyer Hescock, to tell you more about this incredible organization. And we, the Armenian Community Organization, Armenians of Colorado, and TUMO, are here seeking potentially your partnership, and as well as the partnership of industry leaders to realize the dream of bringing TUMO to the teens of Aurora. Thank you for your consideration and for your service.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I don't think I'm able to hear the group.
Can you hear
No.
if we turn on the mics?
Yes.
Okay, we can
Yes.
hear you.
Fantastic. Okay, I'm going to share my screen as well. Okay, can you see the TUMO logo?
Yes.
Fantastic. Hello, everyone, and thank you for including me in this session. My name is Sawyer Hescock, and I'm the CEO of TUMO Los Angeles, which is the U.S. branch of an international network of TUMO centers. As I had mentioned, TUMO is a 501c3 based in Dallas, Texas, but our operations exist within Armenia, but also across Europe, and now with the center in Los Angeles, So that's a very exciting chapter for us in our development. I'm going to take a few minutes just to briefly explain what it is when we say a TUMO Center, to give this group more context and more clarity around today's provision. Our goal is to unlock the amazing untapped resources of human potential, and our goal is to start at an early age. This is why we do after-school programming, and this is why we target teens between the ages of 12 and 18. Our centers are completely free of charge, and as I'll show, they're around the world, but they all offer the same skill area. And these are skills at the intersection of technology and design. Our centers are physical places where students will come and learn regularly for multiple years typically. They'll come twice a week for 2 hours. And while they're at the TUMO Center, they're either doing self-guided learning with mentorship from these are the people in orange vests that you can see here. This is our center in Yerevan, Armenia. Or they're in a workshop, which is led by one of our staff members who are industry professionals. Or they're in a masterclass style learning lab, which is a workshop led by a leader from industry, so somebody who is a fairly senior level at a NASA or a Lockheed, etc. Our program is completely designed to prioritize individual learning and give teens the ability to chart their own course and choose what skills and what content they want to focus on while they're at the center. So we really believe in personalized learning, autonomy, and student choice. This is just another image of the TUMO Center in Gyumri, Armenia. This is that center from the inside. Space, as you can see, is also a really important element for us because creating a space that draws young people in is really important if we want to think about engagement, attendance, and obviously long-term outcomes. This is a center in Kyiv, Ukraine, which we had to close because of the war, but we're actually reopening with our partner in a new location in Lviv. We have a center in Paris. This was our original international TUMO Center. This is in a train station in the center of the city. And then this is these are a few examples of existing TUMO centers. And this is an image of a large redevelopment that happened at the city center of Tirana, Albania, roughly 100,000 square feet. And it wasn't just building a TUMO center, but TUMO will use about 30,000 square feet, and the rest is dedicated to companies and co-working spaces to really revitalize this corner of the city. And it's as you can see, completed in a really exciting project for the city there. As I mentioned, we teach skills at the intersection of design and technology. So robotics, 3D modeling, music, filmmaking, programming, graphic design, game development, and animation. All of this is digital. So the music is not piano lessons, but digital music and digital music production. And the key thing here is that these are skills that are typically reserved for the elites, right? So the students whose parents can afford to have some sort of enrichment program, or maybe they're going to a school that happens to offer programming or robotics. But this is a solution that brings all of those skills together in a way that's accessible and completely free of charge for young people. So we're able to kind of uniquely reach students from low-income backgrounds, which is really important for our mission globally, and especially what we're doing here in Los Angeles. At the core of our program is a software that we've created. This allows us to have truly personalized learning for our students. I can answer more questions on this, but the key takeaway is that every student has a completely unique learning plan that adapts to their interests and their pace over time, as well as making sure that it's promoting and prioritizing the different resources that are available over like a 2-year time span. So this is a really important element that allows us to scale the program while still providing that individualized learning experience for students. Globally, we serve 32,000 teens per week. This is a map showing our footprint. As you can see, most of our activity is in Europe. And this was my previous role. So before coming to Los Angeles, my job was to build out this network in Europe. And as you can see, France, Portugal, and Germany are kind of our leaders, but we also have centers coming in Amsterdam and Spain. So Europe is a really exciting point for us. And then the US is a little bit more empty, but as you can see, the Los Angeles Center is opening, and we do have some discussions with other cities in the US. Pittsburgh and then Atlanta is actually on here as well, but not mentioned in this map. The reason for our success with growth partly is due to the fact that digital education is something that's needed the world over. As in talking with different leaders from very different countries, the common thread is that digital education is something that schools struggle to do because they're not able to update their content and they're not flexible enough to incorporate new technology. Whereas since we're an after-school program, we have that ability, and that's our main value proposition in many ways. The reason that we've been able to expand quickly, again, we're 10 years old or almost 12 years old by now. We've been able to expand quickly with the support of different world leaders that have come and seen the TUMO Center in, the original one was in Armenia, but have seen the center and invested heavily to make that a reality. So Angela Merkel visited the TUMO Center in 2018, late 2018, and worked with her team, then followed up, and we opened a center in Berlin in 2020. Since then, we've opened up an additional center in Mannheim, Germany, and there are 6 more centers funded across Germany. So this is becoming a more relevant and important part of the German education landscape. Carlos Moedas and Anne Hidalgo, the mayor of Lisbon and Paris respectively, have also invested heavily in developing centers in their cities. And then Jensen Wong, who's the founder of NVIDIA, traveled to Armenia to see the TUMO Center, and we're happy to say that he saw our program as one of the best STEM programs in the world. So this is part of the coalition that has made the TUMO International Plan a success. The question that you should be asking and that everyone asks is basically, does this work, right? Is this unique approach to after-school learning, does it actually connect? Does it lead to better outcomes? We recently had a rigorous third-party study conducted in Armenia looking at existing TUMO students as well as alumni, and they did a matched pair study, so it wasn't a randomized controlled trial, but very close to it. And the outcomes that they found were significant improvement in school performance, especially in math, with a 14% increase, and much higher engagement in technology and design careers. So students that attended TUMO were 3 times as likely to participate in those careers compared to non-TUMO pairing or their sort of analogous non-TUMO control group. And then lastly, TUMO students are earning more in the long term. There's also some other positive outcomes like lifelong learning, civic participation, and current events awareness, but these are 3 that we'd like to share and we think are relevant as we discuss TUMO in Aurora. And then really briefly, this is what we're building in Los Angeles. The project was funded by the city and state. Again, completely free for students. It will be supported in an ongoing basis by philanthropic contributions, especially from corporations and foundations. So I'm likely over time, I'm all here to answer questions.
Let me just say I had a more in-depth briefing on this and strongly support it. And what the resolution is asking is not asking for you to endorse this. What it's asking is simply to allow staff to take a look at it, to look at any funding sources that are out there, any grant funding, foundation funding, state resources that are out there, and create options for us to take a look at. Councilmember Coombs.
Mayor, yeah, the other piece is just looking as well at potential locations, sites within the city of Aurora that might serve as a good space to host a site of this kind, as well as reach out to other partners like the school districts and industry folks who may be interested also in partnering. So it's just asking to have some staff support for the folks from TUMO and Armenians of Colorado to look into it and to bring us back some information about what it could look like.
Questions, Councilmember Bergen.
I mean, I think it's a good program. My concern is we're not Los Angeles. We're not a city and county like Los Angeles is. And I just don't think this is within the realm of our proper role of government. This should be something that is done with either private industry or the school districts. Honestly, Cherry Creek School District has the Innovation Campus, and this could be incorporated with their Innovation Campus. Or, I mean, I think it's a great idea. I just do not want to direct city resources, meaning the city manager, who's going to have staff tasked with doing all the assessments, the feasibility study, location. That is not our job, and our taxpayers right now need us to spend money in appropriate places like roads and crime and everything else that's going on. And no offense to the organization, because I think you do great, but we're going to have every nonprofit organization coming to us. Oh, can you do a feasibility study? Can you be looking for sites for us? So for that reason, I can't support it.
I think it's a full feasibility study. Councilmember Jones.
Yeah, well, to add to Councilmember Bergen's list, the animal shelter, I would like at some point to come along. My question is, you said that these centers are for underprivileged kids. So is acceptance based for children, is it based on their parents' income?
This is something that is a local decision by the operating partner. In Paris, they have a quota where 50% of the participants need to be girls and 50% need to be from neighborhoods that have traditionally low incomes. So they're not actually checking tax returns, but if a student is from a given neighborhood that's on a publicly available list, they're marked that way.
Thank you, that's all I needed.
Further questions? Is there any opposition to moving item number 5A forward?
I object.
Go ahead, ma'am. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And Curtis said he objects. 6.
Okay. Well, item number 5A will not move forward. Item number 5B, transitioning domestic violence cases out of Aurora Municipal Court. Councilmember Zavonic, Mayor Pro Tem Zavonic.
Yep, so 2 weeks ago, I had brought forward an ordinance that would have moved domestic violence or prohibited municipal courts from hearing domestic violence cases. After our last conversation, I've brought forward instead a resolution that would direct the city manager, the city attorney, the court administrator, and the chief judge to bring back to us a plan on what that transition would look like. Because I think a lot of questions were like, there was some opposition to the plan, period, but there was also just more questions around how would you make a move like this, of this size, happen. And so in talking with the city manager, I've asked them would direct them through this resolution to bring forward a plan at a date certain. I think it's the August 12th study session. And it would allow all of us to answer or ask any of the questions that we would have. I know there was questions around what would happen to the cases that were still pending in the system if we set a hard date. There was some questions around the having to, commute outside of the municipal center, which, as I mentioned, or the municipal courts, which, as I mentioned, is already a problem for victims of felony level domestic violence. But any other questions? I know there was Councilmember Coombs and I had a conversation about the fees that we collect versus what's collected at the county, making sure, because the counties are concerned on how much it would cost them. They would, of course, collect fees from that. I would want to see what the true fiscal impact would be for us. I know it would save us somewhere in the neighborhood of $3 to $4 million, but then we'd also lose those fees. And so knowing those numbers, that's all of what I would hope to have in that presentation. So what this resolution does is simply direct our 4 appointees to come back and show us what a plan would look like. At that point, assuming that there's a plan that I believe is feasible, I would bring forward the ordinance to actually move it into place, and assuming that there was enough support here. So that the resolution is to kind of take a step back, and instead of putting the ordinance and then having the plan, it's to do the plan and then the ordinance.
Pete, did you have anything to add on that?
No, I think Mayor Pro Tem got it. If I have any questions on the legal side, I'll be happy to answer any.
Okay, questions? Councilmember Coombs.
Yeah, I just wanted to look at the section 3, which actually does direct that we stop filing the cases. And so I guess I'm wondering why that's there if we still have to bring forward the ordinance to do it.
You don't, sorry.
Sorry.
So you can answer.
Yeah, sorry, Mayor Pro Tem. So Pete Schulte, Public Safety Client Manager. So the ordinance was brought originally, but after talking with Mr. Batchelor and Mayor Pro Tem and Mr. Bajork and myself, we realized that an ordinance isn't necessarily required to accomplish what the ordinance was asking for. So literally, the way to get the domestic violence cases out of the municipal court is just to have the PD stop filing under our city code assault or battery violation and just following under state law with the county courts. So we don't necessarily need an ordinance to accomplish that if that's what council's direction is. I'll let Mayor Pro Tem look at this, but that was kind of the understanding was if a plan was in place after August 12th, the tentative start date of when APD would stop filing cases under the city code involving domestic violence in the municipal court would start on that date. But we would still have, as we talked about last time, we still have a large number of domestic violence cases that have been filed under the code, still progressing through the municipal court system. And that's what the 4 appointees would get together to look at. How would we handle those cases moving forward? You know, we talked about statute of limitations. We talked about speedy trial last time. That's what that group would be working on to bring back to council. Looks like probably in August or September for that discussion.
Mayor.
Yeah, Councilmember Coombs.
So then technically, if we pass this resolution, we are saying that effective January 1, 2025, there will be no more filings, in addition to saying we're asking for the study. And so that, to me, it's like, why are we gathering the information and doing the collaboration if we're saying right now, today, we're going to do this?
So,
Mayor Pro Tem.
yeah, so now we can clarify that, because the intention was to put a benchmark out there. But they could come back and say, hey, look, by January 1st is not the right time. Maybe it's end of the first quarter of 2025. Maybe it is the right time. I wanted to put a date instead of just kind of throwing it out there and leaving it in limbo. But they could come back when they give that report and say, here's how we would do it, and this is when we would do it, and this is why it would be a better date.
Mayor,
Basically, how to unwind.
That's right, how to unwind it.
Councilmember Coombs.
then can we amend section 3 to say staff shall investigate ending filings effective January 1 instead of effective January 1 filings shall end? Because that, to me, it says that means we're going to stop.
Does that?
Yeah, I think that'll accomplish it. Again, it's based on your direction. I don't disagree, Councilmember Coombs, that as written, we would stop, because that's the first thing that has to happen, right? We have to stop the filing before we can deal with anything else that's already in the municipal court. So if that's okay with the Mayor Pro Tem, I think we can make that change to say this is all kind of going together, that we're going to figure out the plan. And then if the plan is figured out, then we can give direction through the resolution, have APD start following under state law instead of under the city code.
Well, you're looking at 2 dates, basically, right? You're looking at the effective date when you're stopped filing in municipal court, and then you're looking at how long it will take to unwind it, right?
Yeah, well, and if I can,
Yeah.
the other thing that the resolution does is in order to, because there was some concern raised to me about the cases that would be after we stop filing, they're still in the system, to make sure that they don't just get lost. And so in the resolution, it also requires an update on a monthly basis to the Public Safety Committee on those ongoing cases as they wind out of the system, so that they don't, because if they're constantly in front of staff and they have to report to public safety, it makes sure that they don't get dropped.
January 1 is just, in your resolution, January 1 is just the date that you stop filing.
Stop
new
filing
Right.
your cases.
So it's-
And I would say, and this is where I want to be clear, because I think this is where you're confused, not confused, but I think what the language is confusing, is that the plan that would come back in August would be assuming that that's when we do it. Now, if they come back and they say, hey, look, we're not going to be able, we shouldn't stop filing until a later date, at that point, we would change that date.
Okay. So then her language, Councilmember Coombs' language would be appropriate.
Would be appropriate, and I'd be fine with it.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Further discussion? Is there objection to moving item number 5B forward? Majority of resident support, 5B will move forward. 5C, directing the city attorney to evaluate a legal challenge and challenge Colorado House Bill 24-1437. Mayor Pro Tem.
So, this past legislative session, there was a bill introduced, passed, and signed into law that prohibits cities, of which I believe we're only 3, and correct me if I'm wrong, that prosecute domestic violence. Is that right?
Correct.
That prosecute domestic violence cases from entering into flat fee contracts for private public defenders council. Now, there's one city, Lakewood. That already does this. They actually contract out, use a flat fee, and prosecute. So, domestic violence cases. I think that, forget the public defenders part of it, I think the bigger question is whether or not this violates local control and home rule, because the state, in passing and signing this bill into law, is essentially dictating to local governments like us how we can and can't spend our resources. And we went through the whole process. Nobody came back and said that they wanted to, participate in the RFP, and that's fine, that's settled. But I don't think that we should ever find ourselves in a situation where the state is mandating this type of language on us, and we just we just take it essentially. And I know that Councilmember Lawson did a great job. The cards were stacked against us in the legislature, but she went and we took a formal position in opposition. We made that opposition known. Unfortunately, it was still passed and signed into law. So this resolution directs the city attorney's office to explore the opportunity of us entering into a lawsuit against the legislature or the state for passing this, and I would assume that we would be looking at potentially partnering with Lakewood as a partner in the suit, and potentially others.
Correct. So last week was obviously, I want to get Pete Schulte, Public Safety Client Manager. Mr. Bajork and I were at CML last week. We did make contact with the Lakewood City Attorney, made some other contacts just to discuss this. Their position is based on how they charge, because they don't have a public defender's office. They actually, when they bill it out, they bill hourly up to a certain amount. So is that the definition of a flat fee as was intended by Representative Wiseman's bill? That's up for interpretation. But what this resolution would do would allow us to reach out to those other cities to see if their councils are having the same issues, if they feel like this, the state has come in and taken away some local control, and then to look at whether or not a lawsuit is necessary. And the way that would work is we file in district court, and depending on what happened, then it would go to the Supreme Court of Colorado, skip the Court of Appeals, because it's actually going against the constitutionality of a bill. So that would be, the resolution would ask our office, Jack, and us to look at what are our options moving forward. And it may get their attention, because I know there have been discussion about the Colorado Assembly looking at this again next year, but at least puts us on notice in our office that City Council wants us looking at this.
Yeah. I would hope that this would move forward. I think it's important, whether or not, however you feel about the issue, to preserve home rule local control as a state constitutional issue.
Mayor.
Councilmember Coons.
So this is really an equal pay issue, right? We're bound by the equal pay for equal work
No, it's not.
statutes at the state level. And this, what it says is that we have to comply with the same pay structure that's provided to contract public defenders at the state level, which is structured so that there's a minimum hourly pay up to a certain point, and then after that, there are other determinations made. So what Lakewood does is already in line with what the state does with respect to paying contract public defenders and contract counsel. And so in that sense, it's not, I don't think it would actually impact Lakewood in that way. It certainly doesn't impact us right now, except that we need to make sure we pay our contract attorneys adequately. We actually pay them much more than what the state requires right now. We pay $250 an hour. The state requires $90 an hour. So again, this is, and I think now it's 100. It was 90 last year. It's 100 this year. But it's equal pay for equal work, which we are bound by. And I don't think we should be saying that we shouldn't be bound by that either.
Yeah, I think you're right. I agree with you. But if that were the case, then why just cities that prosecute domestic violence, and why not say that it's for all cities?
Because they're the same type of cases as are filed at the state level, right? They're not municipal type cases. They take more time, more resources, more effort than most of the cases that we're hearing as municipalities. These aren't traffic cases.
I talked to State Senator Wiseman, had called me when he introduced the legislation and said to me, words to the effect. I asked him, why didn't you do other areas? And he said he was already treading on local control and he didn't want to go any further. So I think he certainly acknowledged to me that he was already treading on home rule authority.
And Mayor, if I could.
Mayor Pro Tem.
And I do think you're right. And I think this will be an important part of our conversation that we just had about, because those types of cases are more costly, are more time intensive. And so when we get to the fiscal impact of not having domestic violences in our courts, I think we got to remember that. I just wanted to make that point.
Okay. Further discussion? Seeing none, is there any objection to moving 5B forward? Seeing none, 5B will move forward. 5C, directing the city attorney to evaluate, I just did that. 7A, Colfax and Havana Initiative, Interim Chief Heather Morris.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, Heather Morris, Interim Chief of Police. I've asked Chief Barnes, he's been the lead for the PD, E&I in Colfax and Havana. So I've asked him to do a presentation, and
Okay.
Chief Surge has been supporting him in that.
Go ahead, take the podium. Thank you.
Good evening. I trust the assistant over here is going to try to share the screen with you guys. I have a down and dirty PowerPoint. We're able to get it up and running, so I'll be able to kind of run through the high points of the program itself. So, Colfax Savannah Initiative. So the past couple of weeks myself, I had a meeting with the mayor, several executives from the Walgreens. I want to say Friday before last. Met with Trevor Bond and other city officials, in addition to local business owners, community members, key stakeholders within the vicinity here, referencing the target zone that we're going to label it right now. If you guys recognize this, as you should, it's the Havana Colfax corridor. We have the former, or soon-to-be Walmart over here to the lower left, and obviously the Walgreens and the 7-Eleven, which is still up and running. And then we have the Altitude dispensary up top. So the short of it is, obviously, there have been some significant crime issues that have taken place over the last year in particular, resulting in a number of issues that we believe are not only systemic in nature, but exceeds the resources that we have as an agency, hence the reason why we are in a collaborative effort with other members in terms of within the city itself and then some external stakeholders. Next slide, please. Increasing criminal activity, as I referenced before, namely violent crime, prostitution, open-air drug sales and use, compromising the quality of life. If you guys recall correctly, we had a officer-involved shooting late last year as a result of a violent criminal incident that took place at one of the bus stops up there. And more importantly, 7-Eleven and the Walgreens, which I've referenced before, have been affected tremendously by trespassing, drug lawyering, and then culminating in the closure of the Walmart at 10400 East Colfax Avenue. So we have listed the 8 of internal city partners, I stated before, external stakeholders to address these concerns. Next slide. We are operating under the Place Network Investigations model that's going to be spearheaded by Trevor Bond. He has been instrumental in aiding me in this endeavor here. The primary objectives of the Colfax Savannah Initiative is to reduce crime in the community's fear of crime and improve the quality of life. In addition to that, the PD itself, we're implementing a strategic crime plan to aid in suppression and prevention efforts, and most importantly, public safety. And then, as I stated before, just the collaboration amongst all the groups to include the community. They have a voice in order to get some buy-in from the community and to ensure that we are operating at all levels. We want to ensure that we include those individuals as well. Next slide. And this is the APD mission statement, just partnering with our community to make Aurora safer every day, which encompasses what we're trying to do right now. Some of the plaguing issues in the areas I referenced before, violent crime increase, should I say. A big issue is retail theft. That's resulted in the closure of the Walmart. I talked about the open-air drug sales and use. Something I didn't reference before were the trespassing, loitering issues, and the aggressive panhandling that has taken place, in addition to public inebriation, whether that's through drug use or alcohol use. Next slide. In addition to that plaguing issue, we recognize that some of the unhoused community are likely contributing to some of the criminal activity that's taking place. And what I want to ensure that I place an emphasis on is that I'm not pointing the finger of blame and saying that that's the sole reason. We recognize they have some unique issues that we're having to address. And as I stated before, in terms of some of the internal partners that we've enlisted the aid of, Emma Knight, obviously, and her group are going to be instrumental in assisting us in terms of some of the efforts and resources that are going to be required to help that particular demographic. Next slide. So completion timeline is 90 days with a 30-day reassessment. Every 30 days, we'll do a reassessment, and then we'll kind of consider additional alternatives and potential reallocation of resources. Next slide. So these are some of the goals in which I've kind of outlined. Crime reduction in the designated hotspots. That's going to include, as I stated before, that corridor. Enhancing public safety in designated hotspots. Next slide. Approved partnerships. That's going to be external stakeholders I've referenced before, internal city partners, the PD, et cetera. And then approving the neighborhood business and property appearance. The crisis, correction. The community relations section, we are putting on 2 events over the course of the next couple of months. The first one will be July 13th, tentatively scheduled, and August 24th, at which we will set up in the parking lot of the 10400 East block of Colfax Avenue, which is the former Walmart. We will be doing a free community event. It's a cleanup purpose in addition to just trying to draw in members of the community in terms of, as I stated before, taking back some of the issues that are taking place up there. Graffiti removal, homeless abatements, property nuisance, et cetera, are going to be some of the goals in addition to that. Next slide. So how are we going to staff this thing? Starting with the patrol division, PAR, obviously everyone's very familiar with those guys. We are also trying to do a reformation of the summer task force. I'm not necessarily certain how many of you guys are aware of it, but a couple of summers ago, we had a summer task force that was highly successful on the Colfax corridor. That's going to be an overtime endeavor. We've already started enlisting inquiry for officers within the patrol section in terms of aiding in that. Then we will have the crisis response team to try to help us deal with some of the issues, particularly pertaining to some of the mental wellness issues, psychological issues, whether that's biological or drug-induced, and then, as I stated before, the community relations section. Special operations, that's going to consist of the DART unit, gang unit, narcotics section, a motorcycle enforcement team, and then lastly, SWAT will be employed only as a tactical element, or should I say tactical support element, for the high-risk offenders that we were able to locate up on that corridor. And then lastly, the investigative section, specifically the general investigation section. They will aid us on the back end of all the investigations that take place, particularly as it pertains to filing the felony cases into the various courts. 17 to 18 judicial districts are both on board in this endeavor. Next slide. So action plan, our officers will engage in proactive policing efforts to address crime suppression and enforcement through a data-driven, intelligence-based analytical approach. Days or years, should I say, past the old method of zero-tolerance policing in areas such as this are no longer tolerated, and for rightly so. So as a result, what we're trying to do is take a data-driven approach based on information and intelligence we're able to gather through our analysts, compile that information and be able to locate and identify key targets, who will be, in terms of culprits that are driving the crime up and trying to go after those individuals. And then some of the tactics we include hotspot policing, directed patrols, and joint operations, both formally and informal. Increased visibility will be key to that area up there. We want people to know that our presence is being felt. We'll be out each and every day over the course of the next 90 days. SEPTED educational efforts to the local businesses around there are going to be instrumental in terms of helping them improve their areas as far as weaknesses around their businesses and what they can do to also aid us in this initiative. Next slide. These are our city partners. Only person I haven't spoken to is Julie. We'll be having a conversation here in the next week or so, just an FYI. Next slide. Measurables. Again, it's going to come down to data. So we'll be tracking everything in terms of number of ops, both formally and informally, days and hours worked, manpowers in terms of specific officers from what units that are taking place, felony misdemeanor arrests, summonses issues, evidence seized, number of abatements, nuisances, et cetera. And then qualitatively, we'll be seeking a lot of feedback because obviously that's going to be subjective in nature. We'll talk to a lot of community members in addition to the business owners in the area, and then we also have our in-house spider tech survey. Next slide. Success determination is basically going to come down to crime reduction, or should I say reducing the crime and community's fear of crime and improvement of quality of life. And then just continue to build upon the relationships in which we're able to establish out there with the community members. And then finally, just improvement on the P&I model. We already did one endeavor at Nome and Colfax. This will be our second big project, and I'm certain there'll be many more to come. Next slide. Before questions, I also failed to, I guess, address in terms of the radius around the Colfax-Savannah corridor. So that will be the primary point of emphasis, that particular location. But we have called for a quarter-mile radius in all directions. So that will extend north to the 1700 or 17th Avenue, should I say, and as far south as 13th Avenue, and then from east to west from Moline Street over to Dayton Street. That's all I have.
Well, this area's been a problem for a long time.
Yes, sir.
And it's been an open-air drug market for a long time. And I go with patrol once a month in District 1, and, you know, when the patrol car comes up and there's a trespasser, they'll scatter. And then when the patrol car leaves, of course, they come back. And what the thing you said I like is when you talked about having officers on the ground there, that I think that matters. And so, you know, I'd certainly pursue that element of it. But this place has been out of control for a long time.
Mayor.
Councilmember Jaworski.
Yeah, kind of to piggyback on that, having been here my whole life, this area has been a problem for a long time. And I don't know that this ward council member cares for over-policing in her community or extra policing. But there are businesses.
Councilmember Jaworski has the floor. I
There are other.
Okay, I guess we don't care about rules.
There are other parts of the city where business owners are struggling, being robbed, being burglarized, vandalized, graffiti everywhere. And while I like this, I agree that this area has been a problem for a very long time. And if we are focusing all of our efforts on taking back this area that we never really have had, while the rest of the city is starting to crumble, the Walgreens at Hampton and Chambers has also closed. That's not the only Walgreens in the city that has closed, and I am just concerned. I support this, but it can't stop here, because there are other parts of the city that business owners are being run into the ground.
So I will agree with you wholeheartedly. Obviously, this is going to come at a cost. We recognize the need in terms of, as I stated before, to take back the area. And as a result of us pulling in all the resources in which we have kind of thrown at this, there's definitely going to be, decline in other areas. We'll be mindful of it, obviously, in watching it, and we'll be able to address it as it comes. But you most certainly raise a valid point.
Yeah, I just want to say real quickly that, and then I'll recognize Councilmember Moreno and then Councilmember Bergen, that, because I live by the Walgreens over at Chambers in Hampton, that I do think it was a lack of business there, where I think with the Walgreens at Havana and Colfax, it's fundamentally crime. Councilmember Moreno.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna thank you for the presentation. I've been in contact with a lot of the community members. This is in Ward 1, same with city staff. In addition to some of the items that you presented on, city staff's also working with other partners like RTD. There's an RTD stop right there that, from a physical design standpoint, we wouldn't necessarily allow like the back of a building to be built where that, just on that corner right there. And then certainly it's not necessarily a best practice to put a bus stop there. So, Y'all know that the BRT is going to be coming along the Colfax corridor, so if there's any way to perhaps expedite or have conversations about moving the location of that bus stop. So I just wanted to like uplift kind of what you were saying and just add that like I appreciate kind of the interdepartmental approach that the staff is taking, because I do think that it's not just one thing. So to me, I just wanted to uplift that.
So, to address, the RTD portion of it, they are included on there. They were, in terms of the partners themselves, they were out actually on the ground with us a couple of weeks back. We recognize that the issues, a lot of the issues are stemming from the bus stops. So there are bus stops on the southwest corner and there are 2 bus stops on the northeast corner of that particular intersection. And we talked about a number of different things in terms of potentially moving those bus stops, taking down the shelters, whatever we can do in terms of increasing visibility for us, in addition to making life as uncomfortable as possible. But we have to be careful, obviously, because we're infecting, a lot of hardworking, citizens, which they raised, the question of. And then the second part of it is, right now, in terms of 2024, they don't have the budgeting to do so. They most certainly are taking into consideration for 2025. We've had, some detailed conversations. I know Trevor had some side conversations with those guys as well as I was addressing the rest of the main group. He'd probably be able to elaborate better, but it's something we most certainly are taking into account.
Councilmember Bergen and then Trevor Vaughn.
Thank you, Mayor. Really happy that you're doing this. I agree with Councilmember Jurenski in terms of, obviously, this is an area that we need to focus on, but we have other, obviously, other crime in other areas that we don't want to neglect. My question is, because we're also putting together the street racing task force, or whatever you want to call it, on weekends. And so I know that is voluntary right now with paying overtime. This sounds like we're going to have also voluntary overtime. We're understaffed, as we know, so how are you going to manage that? Like to do both efforts?
Heather Morris, Interim Chief of Police. So on the, in terms of the street racer, we are looking for volunteers, and it's making a big impact, citywide.
Yeah.
And so we will mandate people to work that. So we've got it down to a number that we think is manageable in terms of that. We'll be using a lot of on-duty resources for Colfax and Havana as well, and then we'll have to make adjustments as we go. So that's going to depend on how many people we get to volunteer to work the summer task force. So we kind of have to play some of that by ear. With the resources that we have. We have, at the end of this month, we have additional folks that are coming in off the field training, so we'll be adding to our numbers, here fairly quickly in the next few weeks. So that's going to be very helpful as well.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
Trevor Vaughn.
Yeah, Trevor Vaughn, Manager of Licensing. Thanks. I've been working with Jessica Prosser as far as organizing the city resource side of that, as far as the place-based efforts, and that factoring on a lot of research and activities done in other jurisdictions where it's not necessarily just a policing issue, it's the reason why you have these issues occur in that particular spot, and why it's been so sticky and historically sticky as far as crime. And trying to address that. Councilmember Rio touched on it with the back of the building. There's some design issues there where the bus stops are. We do have RTD included with that, including asking those exact questions of, well, if you're going to do it anyway, where can we maybe dig up some resources, and asking them to perhaps look at reprioritizing. And also working with those property owners, 7-Eleven's doing a number of adjustments, including they've lit up that location. We're looking at beautification and additional fencing on the back of the Century Square building that they're working with us on, and trying to address those cues that are both both the bad guys and good guys see that as safe, but the bad guys pick up on it as a place to do those activities. So trying to involve all those partners and get that area fixed so you can move on and stop having it be such a drain on resources.
Mayor?
Let me just say real quick that and Walgreens can do a better job themselves because there's an encampment in their parking lot. And I don't know, Jessica, Emma, has Walgreens called in a trespass, or I guess maybe that would be APD. They've got an encampment in their parking lot. I checked yesterday, so okay.
Well, that would actually be code enforcement because it's private property.
Okay, so they have to file that. Councilmember Hancock.
Well, thank you. Chief, for your presentation. And having worked on Colfax on the Arts District down there, it was really important when we saw cops on bikes, cops walking, cops in the area, and I think that presence there helped mitigate some of the issues and made people feel safer. We've known this area is a trouble spot for a long time. What are we going to do to get to the root cause of this, to keep these people, we need to let folks know in a strong, unequivocal way, this is not the place you get to do this anymore. So what can we do? What are the actionable things?
Well, I think that's the reason why we, in terms of the P&I model, which we've undertaken, a multifaceted approach, through all the partners that I discussed, but most importantly, to include the community members, into the equation as well. As I stated before, if they have a seat at the table, if they have a voice and they feel that they have a voice, and we're actually, taking into account what they're having to say in terms of providing, requisite solutions to the problems, they'll be more apt to buy into, what's taking place. And then obviously that's going to, in turn result in them, reporting crimes and things of that nature, which obviously help us in terms of our responses.
We've been right in front of
Could
your
I
eyes
just
with these open
follow up
door
real
markers.
quick, Mayor? Just like Neighborhood Watch, remember those
Yes, ma'am.
programs? Are we going to try to do some kind of a model like that?
We can certainly have some discussions about that. Yes, ma'am. I don't want to overcommit.
No, I'm saying with citizenry.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely.
Because I know people, the appetite and maybe their culture, we're not trying to narc people out. But when we're thinking about in terms of safety and security, people want that, but they've got to be stakeholders in their own lives.
I agree.
So that we can have this happen effectively. And I think expecting the police to do everything and everything is unreasonable. So we really need to incent the public to get involved too.
Agreed.
Okay. Councilmember Sundberg, then Councilmember Moreno, then Councilmember Jaworski.
Thanks, Mayor. I've spent a good amount of time at that area, at a few different occasions, in a meeting. My first thoughts were, and of course I support this, but my first thoughts were, why in the hell did it take so long? We're acting in a reactionary fashion right now. 2 years ago, we stated that we wanted data-driven crime fighting. What happened to that? I've talked to cops that have wanted to do foot patrols around here, and not being overly critical, but it's almost too little too late. And no, you don't give up the fight. You incorporate a lot of partners in here, and you fight like hell to get this thing fixed. But to have a couple of major stores close and additional smaller stores, it's hard to come back from that, right? So I'd like to know, what happened? Who sat on their hands? Was it city leadership in that area that didn't want patrols? Is it the state legislative, criminal-friendly stuff? I mean, we can smirk and smile, but you have to ask these tough questions. Anything goes over there, right? You can go in that Walgreens, now it's closed at 6 p.m. and you can watch someone inject heroin leaning against the building right by the front door. You can sit at the bus stop and watch someone smoke fentanyl right next to you. I mean, it's anything goes. It's complete lawlessness. It's an urban hellscape. We got to learn from it. It's going to take a big collaborative effort at this time. But I'm just wondering, I'll never get over why we waited this long to do something about it.
I don't. No. Okay. Councilmember Moreno.
Thank you. I just, again, two things. One, I just want to remind folks that I think it was just after 2020, I sponsored a foot patrol pilot in the area, actually for a similar reason. So I think this is not a new issue. I think the department has tried different tactics over the years. So I just want to give some perspective for folks and remind us that maybe we have some data to learn from there. I don't know I can't recall how long we had done the pilot for, but from the community perspective, it was meant from a community policing model and to create proactive, productive relationships with the business owners, community members, and other stakeholders. So I like that that's a component of this multifaceted approach. So I just wanted to remind everyone of that. And then you mentioned a community meeting on the 13th. I know that that's early in the planning stages. Would just like to request potentially revisiting a different date. I know that might not be in your decision-making authority, but there is a conflicting meeting at the same time. around like economic development, community development, and I'd hate for those two conversations to compete with one another. So out of respect for kind of the totality of the issues, that would be my ask.
So it's an event put on by the Community Relations Section. It's 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. on the 13th. The ball is rolling. I'm not necessarily certain how far down the hill
It's early.
So
I checked it.
I'll follow up and
Thank
see
you.
if we can maybe potentially do
Councilmember
something.
Jaworski.
Thank you. I just, like Councilmember Hancock said, we need to say that crime is not allowed in this place. But this place has been a problem for a long time. And if, I hope the goal is to, I don't know if we're gonna figure out how to solve some crimes over in that area, but I also want to make sure that we're not just pushing this crime to another part of the city. Because again, you're gonna get a different part of the city revving up about it. This place has been a problem for a long time.
So there's always a potential of displacement, ma'am. Obviously, your concerns are valid. We had a similar venture down at Colfax and Beeler back in 2022. There were a lot of violent crime that took place up there, a couple of homicides, shootings, et cetera. And we did essentially the same exact thing, and we were able to clear that out successfully. So I believe if we keep our pedal to the gas over the course of 90 days, we'll be able to clean this up significantly. But then the task in terms of what we can do to maintain is going to come about. And as I stated before, in terms of potential areas that we may fall off from in the course of the 90 days that we have to be cognizant of.
Okay, and let me tell you, I think it's important to fight crime wherever it moves, and not just surrender a single street to these people.
That's right.
And let me tell you, when I was out with patrol on Saturday, at the 2 o'clock shift briefing, they had 7 officers show up where they needed 11. And so there are 11 different zones in District 1, and so just 7 were covered. Doesn't mean you can't move based on service calls, move people around. But it's just to show you how short we are right now. And thank God we've got a new recruit class of 42 recruits. Further discussion? Okay, Councilmember Lawson.
So I just want you to all remember, because about the crime in Ward 5, it should be on your radar because it is moving in that direction. So I appreciate you doing this, but at the same time, you know how many times, Chief, I've reported crime in the neighborhoods. And so I hope that that's not forgotten and dropped, and I will continue to make those efforts because I'm trying to be proactive in trying to do something in Ward 5. So I hope that that's not forgotten. And it's this kind of, I accept this, but this kind of worries me as well.
No, absolutely.
Okay. Further discussion? Seeing none. Is there any opposition to moving 7A forward? Well, 7A was just a briefing, I'm sorry. Stand corrected. Item number 7B, opioid settlement funds. Emma Knight.
Right. And the night manager of homelessness. I'm just gonna pull up a really quick slide deck and we'll go through this really quickly. Just join teams. All right, we are just talking about the opioid settlement funds. And first I wanted to thank council members Bergen, Coombs, and Medina for sitting in on the regional councils and helping us get to a point where we can make a recommendation to you. So thank you for your work on that. So we are anticipating a total of just over $3.4 million over 18 years of opiate funds, and this is coming from approximately $400 million that the state has received or is receiving. And our current funds that we have in hand are just over $540,000, and these are coming from, as you can see, Walmart, CVS, Walgreens, Allergen, and it's potentially we could get more in the future with more settlements. So categories for use, we can use this for reasonable administrative costs, treatment, prevention, support for first responders, research initiatives, and staff is recommending that, let me go back. that we use it for prevention and treatment, really. And within that, more specifically for year one, we're recommending purchase of vehicles for the navigation campus for transportation. And that would be most likely something like buses or like what our ACOT van looks like to be able to transport people to and from the navigation campus, as well as to surrounding areas to receive treatment, like the Potomac campus that will be coming on board. And that's just year one. And then year two and beyond, we are recommending the funds go to our allocated to the operator for a portion of the staffing that would provide that transportation, or potentially for peer support or case managers, whatever staffing they see as appropriate for this and that would fit within the recommendations. And with that, I think that's it. Does council support our suggestions for the use of funds? And I should have mentioned, we would be bringing back any agreements we had to you all for prior approval first, so you'll be able to see whatever we're bringing
Discussion on
forward.
staff recommendation. Councilmember Bergen.
No, I support your recommendations. My only question is on, because you have year one and then year two, and as the chair of the Arapahoe County Regional Council, we've already allocated year one, and now we're allocating year two and beyond. So I guess my question is, are you didn't spend that money, obviously, so it's not really year one, but you're going to allocate it going forward now?
Yes, it would be just when we start spending it, that's year one, so my apologies with the confusion there. Yes.
Okay.
Let me just say, in the prior presentation, that was my request of APD to give that presentation to you on Havana and Colfax. Again, is there any objection to moving the staff recommendation forward? Seeing none, then that's the direction.
Mayor, point of order. I just need to correct, since we're under miscellaneous, when we were talking about the public defender, our conflict counsel, we actually do pay the $100 an hour right now. There's other contract counsel that as a city we pay $250. So I just wanted to clarify that. I would also ask that you enforce the decorum rules, please.
Very well. Study session is canceled. Canceled. I wish.
Thank you.
I wish. It's adjourned.